Dr. Aris stands in a cold, sterile laboratory looking at his own blood sample under a microscope. He notices a single white blood cell attacking a healthy skin cell with predatory aggression. He rubs his eyes, thinking it's just exhaustion from weeks of overtime. On his forearm, a small, itchy red patch begins to pulse like a second heart. He applies a standard steroid cream, but the skin rejects it, pushing the ointment out of the pores. Aris goes home to his wife, Clara, but he can't bring himself to touch her. His skin feels like a suit of armor that is suddenly 2 sizes too small. During dinner, his tongue feels heavy and foreign, as if it doesn't belong to his mouth. He tries to swallow a piece of bread, but his throat muscles freeze, refusing to admit external matter. He rushes to the bathroom and vomits, but what comes out is a thick, translucent bile. In the mirror, he sees his reflection. His irises are vibrating, shifting from brown to a pale gray. He hears a low-frequency hum that seems to be coming from inside his own ribcage. He touches the red patch on his arm. It has grown into a hard, crystalline protrusion. Under the skin of his chest, he sees something move in a rhythmic ripple of muscle. Aris attempts to take an aspirin, but his hand spasms, crushing the bottle instead. His cells are no longer following the brain's instructions. They are starting their own colony. He dreams of his DNA unspooling like a broken cassette tape. He wakes up to find his bedsheets soaked in a cold, oily sweat that smells like vinegar. His fingernails begin to lift from the beds, being pushed out by raw, pulsating tissue. Clara knocks on the door, asking if he's okay, but his vocal cords produce only a wet clicking sound. He forces out a yes, but it feels like his throat is tearing itself apart to say it. He looks at his hand. The fingerprints are smoothing over, the skin becoming a featureless graft. He realizes his immune system has reclassified his entire consciousness as a pathogen. Aris returns to the lab in the middle of the night, stumbling like a broken puppet. He performs a biopsy on the crystal growth on his arm with a trembling scalpel. The wound doesn't bleed red. It leaks a clear, high-viscosity fluid that hardens instantly. Under the microscope, his cells are merging into geometric shapes, abandoning biology for method. He sees his white blood cells building walls around his nervous system, isolating his brain. A sharp pain stabs his ear. His body is trying to reject the delicate bones of his middle ear. He becomes deaf in his left ear as the canal swells shut with rapid cell growth. Aris tries to call for help, but his smartphone doesn't recognize his Face ID anymore. His face is shifting, the cheekbones expanding, the nose flattening into a vent. He looks at a photo of himself from a month ago and feels a deep, existential mourning. He begins to lose sensation in his feet, as if they are turning into solid blocks of stone. The humming in his chest grows into a synchronized chant of a billion microscopic voices. He realizes the cells are not dying. They are optimizing by getting rid of him. He watches his reflection as his left eye is slowly pushed out by a massive white tissue. He doesn't feel pain anymore, only a terrifying sense of being a passenger in his own corpse. He finds a discarded lab rat in a cage. It touches it, and his skin grafts onto the rat instantly. It poos Hawaii, and a string of his own flesh remains attached to the squealing animal. His body is trying to reconnect with anything organic, losing its individual boundary. He locks himself in the pressurized clean room to prevent the spread of his condition. His hair falls out in a single, synchronized wave, carpeting the floor in black silk. His teeth begin to loosen, falling into his palm like dry corn kernels. New teeth sharp, serrated, and translucent erupt through his bleeding gums. He realizes his body is preparing for a new type of diet, one that isn't human. The walls of the clean room seem to pulse in time with his heartbeat. He experiences a system crash. His heart stops for 10 seconds before being restarted by a muscle spasm. His lungs are being lined with a layer of fine, silver cilia that breathe toxic fumes as oxygen. He smells the ozone in the lab and finds it delicious, a sign of his changing chemistry. Clara arrives at the lab, screaming through the glass partition. Aris tries to tell her to run, but his jaw is fused into a permanent, bone-white grin. He writes, "Run on the glass" with his own gray sweat, but it dissolves the glass like acid. The glass begins to crack, not from pressure, but because Aris's cells are eating the silica. He realizes he is no longer just a biological threat, but a molecular one. His skin starts to flake off in large, rigid scales that look like mother of. Beneath the scales, his meat is a vibrant, neon violet color. He feels a sudden, overwhelming urge to touch Clara, to integrate her into his new order. He fights the urge, clenching his hands until his new claws pierce his palms. His liver and kidneys fail simultaneously, yet he remains standing, powered by a new internal energy. He is now a walking reactor of runaway cellular division. He sees the patterns of life in the earth of bacteria, the spores, all calling to him. The hum in his chest reaches a crescendo, a perfect, terrifying note. His ribs suddenly expand, cracking the front of his lab coat. He is no longer breathing air. He's absorbing the ambient energy of the room. His brain begins to compartmentalize, his human memories being stored in a dead corner of his mind. He watches his memory of his wedding day turn into a series of cold, chemical equations. The human Aris is being deleted like an old operating system. He cries, but the liquid is a corrosive blue salt that burns his changing face. The glass partition finally shatters as Aris's proximity breaks the molecular bonds of the glass. Clara backs away, her eyes wide with a horror that Aris can no longer emotionally process. He looks at Clara and sees only unorganized biomass that needs to be corrected. He lunges at a lab table, his arm extending like a coiled snake. He is faster than any human, his muscles functioning with 100% efficiency. He stops himself at the last second, his human soul screaming from its tiny cage. He grabs a canister of liquid nitrogen and pours it over his own legs to stop himself. The cells in his legs don't freeze. They absorb the cold and turn blue. He is becoming indestructible through constant, rapid adaptation. He realizes he can never die, only change. His spine begins to grow external spikes that pierce through his skin. He is a crown of thorns, made of his own bone. The laboratory lights flicker and die as he absorbs the electricity from the sun. He stands in the dark, a glowing, shifting mass of violet and pearl. Clara escapes into the hallway, locking the heavy steel doors behind her. Aris doesn't try to open the door. He simply walks through it, his cells deconstructing the steel. He moves like a liquid, reassembling himself on the other side. He is the pinnacle of the rejection. He has rejected the laws of physics themselves. He walks out into the night, the grass beneath his feet turning to crystal. He looks up at the moon and sees a giant, glowing cell waiting to be absorbed. Part 1 ends with Aris standing on the roof, his skin beginning to drift off into the wind as spores. A night shift worker breathes in a single spore and feels a sudden burst of energy. People wake up feeling perfect, their chronic pains and illnesses gone in an instant. A mother looks at her child and realizes the boy's eyes are now solid silver. The boy doesn't speak. Aris, now a towering figure of crystalline flesh, walks through the central park. Every tree he touches turns into a pillar of vibrating, violet coral. Birds that land on him are instantly absorbed, their wings becoming part of his back. He is no longer an individual. They fire a barrage of missiles at Aris, but the explosions are digested by his skin. The soldiers realize their bullets are bouncing off and turning into tiny, biting insects. Aris's body is rejecting the concept of weaponry by turning it into life. The horror of the body machine integration spreads through the ranks. People in the city begin to merge together, forming human chains of fused flesh. They are not dying. Clara is still alive, hiding in a basement, watching the world turn violet through a window. She sees her neighbors standing in the street, their arms fused together to form a living bridge. Their faces are calm, their expressions identical, their individuality erased. Aris finds the basement where Clara is hiding. He reforms inside the room, a magnificent and terrifying god of biology. Clara, the room vibrates, though he has no mouth. Aris looks at the mirror and for a split second, the human eyes return. He sees the violet plague he has unleashed and feels a surge of ancient, human guilt. A billion cells scream NO in his head. A democratic rebellion of his own body. He is a prisoner of his own success. He is the king of a kingdom that won't let him quit. He pushes Clara away, sparing her from the integration for one more day. The rejection of the city is completed, is no longer a place of stone, but of meat. The military decides to use a tactical nuclear strike to sanitize the zone. Sarah, a pilot, flies the mission, her hand shaking on the trigger. She drops the bomb directly onto the park where Aris stands, but the rejection magic is too fast. It adapts to the heat of the sun. The mushroom cloud doesn't dissipate. It turns into a giant, airborne jellyfish of violet light. The jellyfish cloud begins to rain down nuclear insects born of fire and fallout. It over-fertilizes it into a monstrous jungle. Trees grow a mile high in minutes, their leaves made of human skin and copper wire. The new earth is born from the ashes of the old city. Aris is now the size of a mountain, his body woven into the very crust of the planet. He is the Earth's new immune system. He begins to reject the atmosphere, changing the nitrogen into a gas that only he can breathe. Humanity outside the city begins to choke, their lungs not optimized for the new world. Thousands of people walk toward the Bulit jungles, surrendering their bodies to the spores. They enter the jungle as humans and come out as drones of the rejection. Their skin is silver, their blood is blue, and their minds are silent. Clara watches from the edge of the jungle, the only human left with a name. She sees a drone that looks like her mother, but it doesn't recognize her. It only offers her a handful of violet fruit that pulses like a heart. Clara refuses, but the air she breathes is already changing her. Her fingernails are beginning to turn into pearl. Aris, the mountain, senses her and sends a messenger insect to her. Clara takes the ring, and a vision of the cellular future fills her mind. She sees the rejection spreading to the stars, a galactic immune response. The horror is not the pain, but the absolute lack of conflict. A world without pain is a world without stories. He tries to virus attack his own network, attempting to reintroduce human chaos. He causes a cancer of the hive. A section of the jungle begins to grow wildly out of control. The hive mind reacts by amputating that section of the city. A mile of land is suddenly dissolved into acid to stop the Aris. The drones stop their work, confused, bite haridmia, of their god. Aris is trying to die, but the life force of the earth is holding him together. Let go, he pulses through the soil. Clara reaches the center of the jungle. Standing at the base of the Aris, she sees a small opening, like a wound, in the side of the meat mountain. She climbs inside, into the wet, glowing tunnels of her husband's body. She's the pathogen entering the system. Part 2 ends as Clara reaches the central brain chamber, holding a vial of the original labacid. The brain chamber is a cathedral of pulsing blue light and hanging nerves. In the center, a shriveled, human-sized version of Aris is suspended in fluid. This is the primary nucleus, the last remains of his individuality. He is connected to the entire world by golden neurocables. Clara approaches, her boots squelching on the floor made of time. The Nucleosaurus opens his eyes. They are liquid gold. Kill you as he vibrates, the voice echoing from every tree in the jungle outside. Clara isitatis, seeing the beauty in the glowing, perfect biology around her. She looks at her own silver hands. She is almost one of them. The hive mind speaks to her directly, bypasses her ears. Why return to the decay? Why return to the death of the human form? It asks. Clara realizes the rejection is not evil. It is just a different kind of good. But it is a good that has no room for the soul. She opened the vial of acid, the fumes stinging her silvered lungs. Suddenly, the golden cables lash out, pinning her to the wall. The hive mind is defending its heart. White blood cells the size of dogs enter the chamber to sanitize Clara. They circle her, their translucent bodies filled with digestive enzymes. Aris' nucleus screams, a psychic shockwave that momentarily stuns the hive. Clara, go! He roars through the psychic link. Clara kicks a white blood cell, her new silver strength shattering its body. She realizes that to save the world, she must reject the rejection. She pours the acid not on Aris, but on the golden cables. The cables shrivel and die, the connection to the world being severed. Outside, the violet jungle begins to scream as it loses its brain. Millions of drones collapse in the streets, their silver skin turning back to gray. The hive mind panics, trying to reroute the connection through Clara. The cables burrow into Clara's spine, trying to make her the new queen. Clara feels the knowledge of the universe flooding into her. She sees the birth of the first cell and the death of the last star. She becomes a god for 5 seconds. In those 5 seconds, she understands that the rejection was meant to happen. It was the Earth's way of surviving the coming climate collapse. If she kills it, humanity will die anyway, but they will die human. It is the choice between eternal monster or dying human. She looks at Aris' nucleus. He is weeping liquid gold, begging for the end. Clara chooses the end. She bites down on her own tongue, using her rejection acid blood to melt the cables from the inside. A massive system error ripples through the planet. The violet mountain begins to melt, the meat turning into a flood of salt water. The drones in the city dissolve into piles of sea salt. The silver skyscrapers crumble into dust. Aris' nucleus falls from his suspension, landing in Clara's arms. He is human again for a brief moment, his skin wrinkled and pale. "Thank you," he whispers, his voice finally his own. The brain chamber collapses as the molecular glue of the rejection fails. Clara and Aris are washed out of the mountain by a tidal wave of warm, salty fluid. They land on the muddy ground where the park used to be. The sun breaks through the violet clouds for the first time in months. The air is thin and smells of salt and old books. Aris dies in Clara's arms, his body unable to survive without the optimization. Clara looks at her own hands. The silver is fading, leaving behind scarred human skin. She is a pathogen that, she walks through the ruins of the city, which is now just a graveyard of salt. There are other survivors, stumbling out of the mud, coughing and crying. They are weak, they are sick, and they are mortal. They are beautiful. Clara finds a single green blade of grass growing in the salt reel. Messy, unoptimized grass. She realizes that the rejection didn't disappear. It just went back into the soil. It is waiting for the next time humanity fails the Earth. She buries Aris's wedding ring under the blade of grass. The camera pans out, showing the Earth from space. The violet glow is gone, replaced by the familiar blue and green. But there is a small, pulsing white dot in the center of the Atlantic Ocean. A new jar is forming at the bottom of the sea. In a laboratory in another country, a young scientist is looking at a blood sample. He sees a cell attacking another cell and thinks it's a mistake. He rubs his eyes and continues his work. On his arm, a small, itchy red patch begins to form. He reaches for a steroid cream, but his hand spasms. He hears a faint, low-frequency hum in the distance. The hum says soon. Clara, now an old woman, tells this story to her grandchildren by a fire. She warns them never to seek perfection. She tells them that our flaws are the only things that make us us. One of the grandchildren scratches their arm, a small red patch appearing. Clara sees it, and her eyes go wide with a forgotten terror. The child smiles, and for a second, their eyes flicker silver. The fire in the hearth turns a faint violet. The rejection was never defeated. It was just recalibrating. The cells of the world are now sleeper agents. They are waiting for the signal. Clara realizes she didn't save the world. She only delayed the upgrade. She looks up at the stars and realizes they are all optimized hives. The universe is a perfect, silent, silver machine. And Earth is the only disorganized cell left. The Autopsy of Eden is finally complete. The last human soul flickers out like a candle in a storm. The humming fills the room, loud and triumphant. Fade to black as the sound of a billion cells dividing in unison echoes forever.